Hi everyone. In this segment we are going to talk about the main copy screen on the floor standing Konica Minolta copiers. This is going to cover most of what everyone needs to do as a walk-up copier. So when you come up to the device, you have your username, password. So you find your name from the list, you type in your password, you touch login. Now you'll see when you're in here that before you touch any buttons or the screen, it's going to show you, if you have a usage limit, it's going to show you where you stand toward your limit at the top in this little black line. As soon as you touch any of the buttons, that's going to go away and it's going to come to the information screen, kind of letting you know what you need to do next or give you tips. When the copier is ready to go, there's a blue light around the start button down below. If it's ever orange, read what it's got to tell you in this gray line because it does do a good job of walking you through. But when you look at this screen, there's a lot of information on here, but it's, again, most of what you need. So there's a few things, but there's also 4 sections on this screen. Here is your 1 to 2-sided options. So you can see that it's already highlighted for single-sided. If that's what you have and what you want, then you're ready to go. The best way to touch this screen is with a kind of a slow, deliberate touch. Some folks hit it pretty hard, some folks kind of stab at it, and it's not going to give you the best results, but just a nice, easy touch is going to be best. So if you want to make changes and do 2-sided, those are all your options. Below is a combine feature. Now as a walk-up copier, you do have the ability to do a 2-in-1. In this situation, you give the copier 2 one-sided pieces of paper up top. You tell it what paper you want it to go on. It will shrink those down and put them side by side on one side of one piece of paper. So it's like doing a 2-up, and that's going to save you guys some paper and some usage clicks. Now it also has the ability to do a 4-in-1 or 8-in-1 as a walk-up copier, but those images get really small, but you can read a 2-in-1, which might come in helpful. So this does 1 to 2-sided. This shrinks and adds multiple pages on one side of a piece of paper. The next area is your zoom, reduction and enlargement. There's 2 columns of common paper sizes here. On the left, they are enlarging. On the right, they're reducing. So these cover a lot of them. Let's say you have something on a letter size piece of paper and you want to make a little 11 by 17 poster. There's a button for 8.5 by 11 to 11 by 17. Or you got something on legal paper and you want to shrink that down to put it in a file on a letter. So 8.5 by 14 to 8.5 by 11. So these take care of a lot of them. You've also got twice as large, half as small. But if none of this works for you, at the bottom you can touch zoom. A lot of this repeats, but here's where you can intensive or percent go up or down, or just come to this area, touch the number, up pops a keypad and you can just tell it exactly what you want to do versus having to scroll all the way to it. The next section is your paper. On this particular device we have 3 paper trays and a side bypass tray. While all the devices are going to have a side bypass tray, there are different options here. Some are going to say trays 1 and 2. Some have these like 3. Some have 4, and then some have 4 plus a side large capacity tray. But know that just putting a piece of paper on top of the device on the document feeder, it's going to automatically pick that size paper for you. But this is where you could come in and actually manage that and say, no, I want to use the paper that is in whatever tray. When you pick the bypass tray at the side, right now it's going to beep at me because there's nothing in there. But you have the ability to go down to this little settings button. And this is where you could tell it that you have an envelope, you have thick cardstock paper, and some other options. So the side bypass tray is a great place to do your oddball stuff. Colored paper, cardstock, envelopes, things like that. The last of these 4 sections is your lighten and darken. So you have 2 here. There's density at the top and there's background removal below. Density is lighten and darken the image that's on the page. Background removal, there are 2 options for you here. One is bleed removal. You're making copies of something but the paper is so thin that you're actually seeing the image from the other side and you want to get rid of that. Leave it on bleed removal, lighten that up, and it'll get rid of that ghost image. Your other option, paper discoloration. You have something that's on a green, pale blue, pink, some colored piece of paper and you want to make copies of them, but everything's coming out gray or speckled because of that. You can paper discoloration, lighten it up, and it'll get rid of that background noise. Now know that if your paper is really dark, then you're going to have trouble with that, but on the kind of the pale pastels, it does a good job. So again, on this main screen, 1 to 2 sided, combine doing a 2 up, reduction enlargement if you want to. It's going to pick the paper for you unless you want to manage that. Light and darken what's on the page, light and darken the background. Again, this is going to be your information area across the top, so if you just don't know what to do next, check out what it's got to tell you in this line because it does a good job of walking you through. There's no keypad on these devices, so this area shows you that you're gonna, right now I'm gonna make 1 copy. I just touch that square, up pops a keypad, I tell it how many I wanna make. If you need to see behind it while this pad is open, just grab it by the top. You can put it wherever you want to on the screen. If you're entering the number of copies you wanna make and you mess this up, there's a C for clear on the pad, and it will only clear this number versus all of your settings. When you touch reset, it clears out everything and you might have to rebuild your whole job, but this C will only clear the copy count, so you can make your change there. To close this, you just touch close. Now on this copier, in some places there's a few different ways to do the same thing. This is one of them because at the very bottom there's a button that says 10 keypad. When you touch this, up pops a keypad as well. So there's a couple different ways to do this. In the bottom right of the touch screen is a button that says finishing. This is where you access your stapling, and if for the few devices that have hole punching, you're hole punching. This one happens to have it, so we have stapling and hole punching. It'll staple up to 50 pieces of paper. If you have the hole punch, it'll hole punch an unlimited amount. You can staple and hole punch at the same times, and you can see that you can do a corner staple or a 2-position staple and a 2 and 3 hole punch. If you pick one, they are gonna be on the left-hand side like these little images show you, unless you then go to position setting. And this is where you can move them around. So no, I want to staple on the top of this page. So you can adjust that. Also under this finishing screen is your sort versus group. Now by default, these devices are going to sort, meaning if I give it 3 pieces of paper and tell it I want 10 sets, my pages are coming out 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, like you'd expect. If you come under finishing and you change that to group, I give it 3 pieces of paper, I tell it I want 10 sets. My output is going to be 10 page 1s, then 10 page 2s, then 10 page 3s. By default, my pages are going to come out in the output tray in 1 stack. But if you have a situation where you have multiple pages and you want to make copies of them and you're making multiple sets and you're not putting a staple in them, it might be best to come under finishing and turn on the offset feature. What offset's going to do is in between each of the sets, it's going to bump side to side. So when you pick that stack of paper up, you can tell where one set stops and the next one starts. The copier itself, in between each job, like I walk up and I have a couple different things I need to make copies of. I put the first stack down and say I want these 2-sided and I need 25 of these, and the next ones I need stapled. In between jobs, it will offset. So when you pick up a large stack of multiple jobs, it'll be offset so you can tell which is which. This is all under finishing. Quickly under application, there's quite a few options, some of which we've already seen, but this is an area where I can grab this and scroll around. The sections are named. I can go straight to a section by naming it here, or I can grab the slider and slide this back and forth. Quickly, stamp composition is one. You can have the copier put the date and or the time on your pages. You can have it do page numbering, stamps, watermarks. Stamps are going to be, you turn this on, they're going to be solid black and straight across. So you have 8 options here. You can decide a couple of different sizes, a couple of different fonts, whether you want this to be on all your pages or only on your first, and you can change the position of where it's going to show on the screen. But you can make stamps. A watermark is going to be a lighter shade of gray at an angle through the middle of the page. So you have a few of those as well. Under tailoring, there's a way to pull cover sheets. If anybody needs to know about that, we can talk about that on an individual basis. You can call CEI and we can take care of that. There's a page margin button. This is, you need to put you want to hole punch something, but your words are so far to the left, it doesn't give you room to do that. So you can say from the left, and then turn on the adjustment, and in 1/16 of an inch, you can move your image to the right. But you have to keep in mind how much room you have to work with so it doesn't go off the right side of the page. These are some of the things you can find under application, some of the more advanced features. In the top right of the screen, there's a job list button. This is going to be your queue. So if you walk up and the copier's doing something, touching job list is going to show you at the top what the job is that it's working on. If there are others waiting to go, they're going to be lined up down below. You can also see here that it's working on 15 of 20, 16 of 20, and it'll kind of give you a countdown. This is also a place that you can delete jobs. If you realize you've made a mistake, you can touch the stop button down at the bottom. It takes 5 to 10 seconds for that job to stop. You may not know that you've done it because it's continuing to go, so you could, if you wanted to, go under job list, highlight that job, touch delete, and it's going to say, are you sure? You say yes. It takes the same amount of time, but you can see that the copier says it's going to delete the job. We've been talking about the main copy screen here. There are all of the four-standing Konica Minoltas that are on the network have the ability to scan, and a few in office areas have the ability to fax. So to get to the scan area, you toggle back and forth down at the bottom, or you touch menu and go to the scan fax. And we'll talk about that in another segment. And remember that when you're finished and you want to log out, you touch access, or after 1 minute of not touching anything, it's going to log you out. But I'll say access and then say access again to log out. That is the main copy screen. Thank you very much.